So I've decided I'm going to partake in the silent quit. Now, you might have heard of the phrase quiet quitting at work, which is when you do the bare minimum required at work, just to sort of get by, meet your contractual obligation and get paid because you've realised there's more to life than just work. I did a whole video on this in January, and ultimately quiet quitting probably led me to early retirement. But no, the silent quit is something else. It's something more broad and something beyond just work. So I'm going to break it down for you and also perhaps give you a toolkit so that you too could also silent quit. So it got me thinking, this whole concept of quiet quitting work. As I said, it feels a little narrow, especially when you hit your 50s and for, Gen X upwards. For people in their 50s and beyond, it's no longer a case of, not trying to just get by at work. There's more to it than that. Many Gen Xers are at a point where they're looking at their entire lives and thinking, what can I actually get rid of? I've been reading about something that's way more powerful than quiet quitting. It's something called the silent quit. And this isn't about your job. It's about strategically, consciously, and quietly quitting the parts of your life that no longer serve you. It takes some of those concepts and principles of quiet quitting your job, but applies them to your life. Now, let's be 100% clear. This is not about disengaging from life. It's just the opposite. It's a plan to re-engage with your life, but this time completely on your own terms. It's about doing just enough of what doesn't matter to actually make tons of space for all those things that really do matter. If you're a Gen Xer, someone in their 50s, I tell you what, this is a perfect time for a personal revolution. So let's break it down a bit more. So you might think, why now? Why in your 50s? Why Gen Xers should be looking at this? Why does it feel essentially an idea that comes to you in your 50s? Well, there are many reasons for this. And in a report I read recently, they described it as a sort of pressure cooker. It's this perfect storm of external demands and internal shifts all hitting us at the same time in our 50s. That's why Generation X is also now known as a sandwich generation, because we've got the sandwich generation squeeze. It's a phase where you still might have kids at school or going through university or haven't left home because they can't afford to buy a house. And on the other side, you've got aging parents with their sort of physical and mental health requirements. And so you're being squeezed between these two things, being pulled in a million directions, managing your kids' lives and your parents' medical appointments. It's a massive drain on your finances, your emotional energy. It's basically a resource crisis when you hit your 50s, where your own needs just keep getting pushed lower and lower, further down that list. Then there's the late career burnout when you hit your 50s. After decades of trying to climb the career ladder, that greasy pole, and, paying your dues, you'd think it would be time where you could ease up, start delegating more, having longer lunches, just like your predecessors used to. But the economy has changed now, and instead, you're just being asked to work more, work harder, but for less remuneration. Wages have stagnated and the older generation tends to get overlooked, especially in a time of technological advancement and a fast-changing world. In your 50s at work, you can start feeling a bit exhausted, detached, and you start wondering, what's all this for? I was passionate about the industry I worked in, but the industry landscape sort of changed dramatically over the last few years, and I just became a bit more disillusioned with it, a bit more detached. And that greasy pole, that professional ladder, you begin to sort of see it for what it is, more of a treadmill. I hustled and moved upwards in my 30s and 40s in the career, but as my kids got a bit older and stuff, I began to think, what's the point? I can do my job in my sleep. Why do I need to try to progress and just take on more work? Why hustle for little reward? And on top of that, you have the kind of weight of outdated societal expectations. Our society is obsessed with age. This is especially pertinent for women. And it has this sort of unwritten rule book that says our 50s should be about winding down, taking fewer risks, and becoming, quieter, like the silent generation. There's this pressure that reinvention is just for the young, or that putting yourself first is somehow kind of selfish. It can make you feel like you're supposed to be getting smaller or invisible, just, wander off into the corner. And then there's that kind of stereotype that you can't teach an old dog new tricks that society constantly seems to hold. The constant pressure to seek approval and live by these invisible rules can be it's profoundly draining and adds a significant psychological burden to an already overloaded life. But we're Gen X and we can learn plenty of new tricks. We're adaptable, and that's the cool thing about this time of our life. With all this pressure building on the outside, something amazing is happening on the inside. We're starting to recalibrate our compass. After decades of following scripts that seem to have been written by everyone else, our parents, our bosses, society, we're finally stopping to ask, what is it I want to write? It's a drive for a life that isn't just successful on paper and according to everyone else, but one that feels deeply meaningful to us. When I hit 50, my life did dramatically change for various reasons. And I did take stock. And I started to live a life more authentic to me. Where those edges of my youth had seemed to be shaved off, I kind of tried to regain them and started to live a life more authentic to me. And that independence of spirit, caring less about what society has scripted for me and living my life based on my own screenplay, as it were, has only kind of intensified and increased in my 50s. And no, this is not some sort of midlife crisis. This is all backed up by science. This search for meaning is a developmental stage. There's a psychologist called Erik Erikson, and he identified the core conflict of midlife as generativity versus stagnation. This is the itch for change, and it's the psyche's way of pushing an individual out of a comfortable but, stagnant routine to explore new avenues for purpose and impact. The silent quit, as it were, emerges as a rational and necessary strategy to resolve this crisis going on. It's a way to shed the roles that no longer fit you, to make way and make space for a more authentic self to emerge. And so that old idea that you can't teach an old dog new tricks is a total myth. In fact, science backs that fact up as well. Our brains have this incredible ability called neuroplasticity, which means that they can form new connections at any age. We are literally wired for growth and change right now in our 50s and onwards. So that desire for reinvention isn't a crisis. It's your brain's natural capacity for renewal just kicking in. I'm trying to learn Japanese, as I've mentioned on some of my videos. And when I struggle, I just blame it on being that, old dog, or my brain not being as elastic as it used to be. But as it turns out, according to science, that's just BS. I'm just making up excuses. So this silent quit is not about being lazy or just giving up. Get that idea out of your head. It is an upgrade. That's what this channel is all about. That's why I call it level 50. Level 50 is like in a game. When you reach level 50 in the game and you've maxed out all your abilities, you can take on any boss level in the game from that point onwards. Hence level 50 lifestyle. This new philosophy is about adopting a few key mindsets that have been around for a while. None of this is new, it's just got a kind of a new title. First of all, think like an existentialist. This is a game changer. It's not about getting more done, it's about getting only the right things done, the important things done. It's about learning to ask that one simple question before you commit to anything. Is this absolutely the most important thing I could be doing with my time right now? And unless the answer is a hell yeah, then it's a no, right? This gives you permission to stop trying to do it all. Second, you can take a page from the Downshifters playbook. This is where people voluntarily simplify their lives to escape the rat race. As I said, like quiet quitting your work. It might mean reducing your hours or changing careers to something less stressful or more fulfilling, or consuming less. Or, if you're in the right place at the right time, retiring early so you can pursue your own passions. Think about, downsizing the house if and when the kids are gone. I mean, imagine how much time and money you'd free up on your maintenance and bills, etc. It's about trading a little bit of income or status for a massive upgrade in your quality of life. More time, less stress. The reason I could retire early is because an opportunity came along which allowed me to dramatically reduce my outgoings, my mortgages and my loans and stuff like that. But it also did require me to adapt to a much more frugal lifestyle. But as I've pointed out in other videos, adopting a frugal lifestyle actually gave me more joy. And finally, there's the minimalist mindset, right? This isn't just about a tidy house, you know, tidy desk, tidy mind, all of that. It's about removing distractions, physical, digital, mental, to make room for the things that you actually care about. All that clutter in our homes, on our calendars, it sends a constant signal to our brain that our work is never done, busy, 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 which of course just spikes our stress levels. So by getting rid of stuff, both physical, digital, mental, you know, the mental baggage we've collected over decades, get rid of that, and we create this amazing sense of peace, focus and freedom. I mean, just psychologically made a big, big difference. But it's, as I said, it's more than just the physical stuff. It's just decluttering the brain of all that useless stuff that you've never used and that mental baggage you're carrying around with you. Okay, great philosophy. I get it, Clive, I hear you. How do we actually do this? So here's a 3-step toolkit you might want to try to apply. Number 1, conduct a full life audit. Now this is tough because you have to be radically honest with yourself. You need to define the big categories in your life: career, health, finances, relationships, hobbies, and so on. And then you rate them 1 to 10. And after that, you write down what a perfect 10 would look like and feel like for each of these categories. And then the gap between that number and that perfect 10 shows you where you need to focus your energy. This stops you from living by someone else's goals and helps you get clear on what your own goals are. We can live our life based on other people's goals without even realizing it. For example, in long-term relationships, often, you know, those relationship goals merge together. But sometimes, after a while, the balance sort of shifts to one partner, and suddenly you're living your partner's goals and less of your own goals. And you didn't even notice this was happening. Step 2, master the graceful refusal. This is the hard part for a lot of us, right? I mean, I know I have a problem just saying no. We're so worried about disappointing the person asking. I mean, I'm guilty of this because I hate causing an emotional response. And some of the people I've known in my life are quite emotional. And so in my head, I'm constantly calculating, how's their emotional response going to be if I just say no? And ironically, I think I'll just say yes and then I'll have a quiet life and shut them up. But you know what? Someone else's insecurity or an emotional immaturity is not your problem. It's not my problem. So if I say yes just to appease them, then I'm just teaching bad behavior. And then it becomes my problem. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. Something I need to learn. The key thing to remember is you're not rejecting a person. You're rejecting a request. It's something I still struggle to deal with, but I'm learning. But there are some sort of simple scripts that you can sort of use. You know, if you need to buy more time, you can say, yeah, let me check my schedule and get back to you on that. I mean, fair enough. As I say to my kids, unless you're actually on fire, it can wait. Or a simple direct, no, thanks for thinking with me, but it's a hard pass. No need to overcomplicate it. No need to build a white lie that'll only come back and bite you on your bum. Just be brief, to the point, and clear. And my personal favourite, framing it around your own priorities. Be upfront about it. I have to say no for now, as I'm really prioritising my health, family time, new project, etc. this year. Yeah, look, I know it sounds a bit poncy. Find your own way of saying it, but hopefully you get the idea. And if your answer then thus elicits an emotional response or an emotional outburst, which is not in proportion to the request, then you know it's their problem. See my notes about emotional immaturity above. Remember, no long apologies, no complicated excuses needed. Brief, clear, and firm. Okay, step 3, craft your un-to-do list. I love this concept. Instead of a list of things to do, you know, your to-do list, this is a list of things you'll stop doing. This is how you enforce your new boundaries every single day. In the same way you have this to-do list posted on your computer or something on a post-it note, you can have an un-to-do list. I will not check my work email after 6 p.m. I mean, this should be a hard, fast rule for me, definitely. I used to log out of my work computer on my phone at 6 o'clock. Unless the world is on fire, it can wait until 9 a.m. in the morning if you're asking me at 6. I will not say yes to a request on the spot if I want more time to think about it. My kid is always asking permission to do stuff, which is good, and I respect him for it. Well done. You know, if I want to be honest with him and think about the consequences of what it is he wants to do, I need more time. So I tell him, give me more time to think about it. And he respects that. And then I will not feel guilty for taking an hour each day. This is especially true in retirement. Oh my God, doing bugger all and just chilling is more powerful than you can think of. You don't have to feel guilty about recharging your batteries. And if you're at work, how about, I will not attend a meeting that doesn't have a clear agenda. Oh my gosh, clarifying what the purpose of the meeting actually is. You know, you have some meetings which are just scheduled months in advance or regular meetings. But then after a while, the original purpose of that meeting seems to be lost in the eons of time. So if you clarify what the meeting actually is for with the person arranging the meeting, unless they can answer in a very clear, distinct way and how it adds value to the overall corporate desires, whatever, then you're perfectly justified to say, thanks, but I'm being a good corporate citizen. This is not adding value to the bottom line, etc. Anyway, the point is you make this list and you post it just like you'd post a to-do list somewhere you can see it every day to remind you these are your personal policies. These are the things for protecting your peace. Look, I'll be honest, making these changes is not always going to be easy. I know I've struggled in some of them. And yeah, sure, this video is very prescriptive, but many of these traits I've just started doing without even realizing. It was only on reading and researching about this stuff that I thought, oh yeah, that's me. So you might feel a little guilty at first, especially, for instance, if you're a caregiver and you've been a caregiver all your life. But remember the airline safety rule. You have to put on your own oxygen mask before attending to someone else. And I've always followed this principle in life. Self-care isn't selfish. It's what allows you to show up for the people you love without burning out. And yeah, some people in your life might be a little thrown off when you start setting boundaries. A friend or a partner who's used to you always saying, yes, dear, yes, yes, we'll do that, yes, might get frustrated or confused. See emotional point I made earlier. This is not about pushing people away. It's about negotiating a new, healthier dynamic for your relationships, an honest relationship. You may well know people who have simplified their life and silent quit, even though they might not call it the silent quit, in this way. And that just proves it's never too late to just reinvent your life around those things that truly matter to you. You are not an old dog. There's plenty of new tricks out there that you can learn. So anyway, there you go, the silent quit, an audit of your life. Let me know if any of this resonates with you or any comments. Put it in the comments down below. I always like reading the comments. And if you've enjoyed this video, then do me the great honor, please hit the likes because I like it, YouTube likes it, and it helps people like you find content just like this. And if you're new to my channel or one of the 83% of people who watch my videos on a regular basis and haven't got round to it yet, could I ask you, please, could you hit that subscribe button, toggle that notification bell, and that way you'll know when I upload videos just like this. And talking of videos just like this, why don't you check out the videos here? See these ones here? Yeah? Oh my lordy, I think you'll love them. Thanks for watching.